Greetings, it's Vanessa-Mary, Wellbeing Healer, and I'd love to introduce you to a new Sunday conversation that, to be fair, I had the idea about this at the beginning of the year, but sometimes with ideas, we can't just rush into them. And if you've been following my journey, then you know I have been busy at the beginning of the year working on other projects. So when I had a moment to think about all the conversations I've showed up with on social media or in articles, I recognize that I speak a lot about well-being, I speak about business, I speak about leadership, but I haven't really shared many stories. So this is where this new Sunday conversation is coming in. It is called Family Heritage. And we're starting with the premise that every family has a story. Now, if you're watching this live, then I would love for you to leave me comments and I'll read them out. You can tell me, a little bit about your background, where you're tuning in from. I'm making it a live stream because I'd love it to be interactive. So, yeah, family heritage is going to be about the stories, values, and the lessons that we've learned along the way. So, why family heritage? Well, I want us to think about legacy. Let's start with that. And this week I had the honor of being on a podcast with Zoe Wadsworth from Ask Zoe. And she actually said in that conversation that nowadays when she's thinking about the word legacy, she really associates that word to me. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. And to be honest, that was one of the things that I set out to do a few years ago when, as a well-being healer, I really thought, well-being is our first pillar. And if we get our first pillar right, which is looking at our own well-being, then we're already on track to creating our legacy. Now, if you've been following my journey, then you'll know that I've recently published the first issue of Legacy Ledger. So, oh gosh, I have to drop my pen in the process. So I hope there's not too much of a glare there, but there you go. Legacy Ledger is out. And that's packed full of stories. But again, it's stories about well-being, leadership, business, that type of thing. So I thought, well, if we're thinking about legacy and what does that mean to us? So I'll share from my perspective that I am a grandmother. So I'm a young grandmother. And I've got two granddaughters. And already one of my granddaughters, she's 10. She has got her own mind, obviously. The little one who's 8 has definitely got her own mind as well. But observing my 10-year-old and the way how she's thinking and thinking about the future. And then for me, as a grandmother, I definitely wanted to start creating assets, whether it's digital assets, whether it's something that I can hold in my hand, such as the magazine, share things with my family that they can look back in the future and say, actually, this is what my grandmother created. So for me, legacy is about what we leave behind. So just going back, as I said, you are the first pillar of your well-being. And if we get our well-being right, then our legacy is part of that. So in this conversation that I'll share with you on Sundays, and it doesn't matter when you're watching it, this is just the time in my life when it's a good fit for me to do a live stream. And like I said, if you're watching it live, then please do, interact with me here. I'm going to be telling you about some of the men and the women who have left their legacy on me. So sadly, they're not still in my life. They are my elders, so members of my family who have now passed, but the things that they said to me, the lessons that they've left with me have really stayed with me. And again, as you listen to this conversation, maybe you might remember people from your own journey. And if you want to share and, maybe share stories from your loved ones who've left lessons with you, then please do feel free to leave comments. So I will be talking about both of my grandmothers in this conversation and also some of my elders. So thinking about one of my elders, again, this is when I was planning out this concept, I realized that actually I come from a family of legacy builders. And even though I don't have a photograph of him here, I will probably go deeper in one of the articles and share a picture of him. I'm going to introduce you to my grandmother's brother. His name was Tom Oliver. And Uncle Tom, as is fondly known in our family, he's left such a legacy in the city of Nottingham through his allotment that has now become a heritage site. And in fact, there's something that's happening, I think, in the next few weeks where it's, some kind of community day is being held on that site. My family will be attending. I might attend depending on other things if I can make it. But why I'm sharing this is because of my grand-uncle's dedication. Even though he passed away some time ago now, there is actually an allotment area named after his legacy. So it's called the Oliver Heritage Site. So again, if you have stories like this in your family, then please do share. Is there anybody in your family who's literally left a legacy? They may have written a book. They may have been a musician. They may have been an artist. They may have built a business. They may have been a community champion. Please share your stories, because I think as this conversation goes deeper, we'll all discover, I'm sure, along the way, that we've either been touched by others who've left their mark, left their legacy, which has impacted on us. Or if you don't have a member of your family that you could directly call upon, it might be a friend or somebody in the community or somebody in the city where you live or where you were born. So please do share. Because essentially, this is about ordinary men and women who did something different and they left their mark on the world. Now, I do feel that in terms of legacy and heritage, there are people who I describe them as living legacies. So they are actually still very much alive. And then they're change makers in the world. So they're still having a massive impact in the world. So again, if there's anybody that you can think of, or you know them personally, who is a change maker, who's a living legacy, then please do leave a comment. Let me know that you were here and, give them a shout out, because I'm sure they'll love that. So before I go any further, if you're watching this on the replay and you're loving the content, please could you like the channel that you're watching this from? I am streaming across 3 channels at the moment. So wherever you're watching it, please give this content a thumbs up, leave me a comment, then I'll know that it's resonated with you. And that will keep me motivated to come back and keep showing up here. Okay, so thank you very much. So if you're just tuning in, my name's Vanessa-Mary, and I am talking about family heritage. It's not just about my family. We've talked about legacy and what that means to us in general. So each week I'm going to be sharing grandmother's wisdom. Okay, so as I said in my introduction, I am a grandmother myself. If you are a grandmother or a grandfather, or maybe you are a grandaunt, so maybe you didn't have your own children, or maybe you had your own children, but your relatives have had that next generation. Let us know in the comments, because when we're thinking about heritage, what does that mean to us? So let me know if you are now looking after or a caregiver, an influencer in some way of the second or maybe third generation in your family. I'd love to see those stories. So I'm going to talk about grandmother's wisdom, and I'm going to start with my mum's mum. Her name was Susan Oliver. So I've just mentioned her brother, Uncle Tom, or Tom Oliver. And every week I'm going to share grandmother's wisdom. So it could be from my mum's mum, or it could be from my dad's mum. I did grow up in foster care as well, so I do have wisdom that has been passed on to me by my foster mothers as well. But this one is from my maternal grandmother. And I was thinking about the wisdom that I wanted to share. And one of the things, if you know me well, you'll know that I don't have a television. I read lots of books. And in fact, the book that I've just been reading today is over there, so I'm not going to grab it. But I have a Sunday book club or Sunday reading club. So if you're interested in joining me on that, we speak on WhatsApp between the hours of 10 and 11. So you don't have to think about putting your video on. You don't have to think about signing into a Zoom link or anything like that. And we are reading, we've just started this week reading Susan Jeffers' Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So that's interesting because the author is Susan and my grandmother's name was Susan. But anyway, let me get on with it. So my grandmother's wisdom to me as a youngster growing up, and she was my main caregiver at one point in my life, was, Vanessa, stop watching television because they've made their life already. So she would really get very annoyed if she'd come home after work and she would see me watching. I mean, it was kids' TV. I'm, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s with brilliant programs, but it really did annoy her. She would say, they've made their life already. You should be reading your books, or you should, she really wanted me to tap into my creativity at that point. And I never understood what she meant. I thought she was just being so grumpy. But yes, I understand now because, I'm not disputing anybody who, if you've got your favorite television programs or films or whatever, then that's fine. We all need entertainment. But my grandmother really wanted me to be educated and really wanted me to tap into my own creativity. So that's grandmother's wisdom this week, that my grandmother really didn't like me watching television. Okay, so if you're thinking about an older relative or somebody who's influenced you along the years, please do share what is the wisdom that they left with you. All right. So now we're going to talk about the family principle. So every week I'm going to touch on the family principle. And the family principle is where we are really going to be exploring what the word family means to us. So we've got Martin coming in on LinkedIn. Hi, Martin. Please, can you tell me who's influenced you along the way? I would love to know. So yes, we're going to talk about the family principle, and we're going to start with the word foundation. Okay, so what foundations did you grow up with? Okay, so this isn't, oh, you're saying I can't see or hear anything here. Oh, that's not good. Is everybody okay? Now, how do I know if other people can see or hear me? Thank you for letting me know. Let me just leave them a comment. So, oh, I've done it on. Oh, yeah. Okay. Martin, just wait a minute. Thank you. And I normally do test my sound. Let me see if I can hear myself coming through on LinkedIn. Just bear with me. Okay, so no, Martin, I've just tested myself on LinkedIn and I am coming through on LinkedIn and you're watching it from LinkedIn. So I don't have any problems with my sound, but thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be a regular conversation that I'm having. So we're talking about the family principle. So every week we will touch on the family principle here. So the F is for foundation. What were the foundations in your family life that you really know have stayed with you into your adulthood? So my family foundations were a little bit mixed up. So most of you who are watching this will not know my background. So I've already mentioned that I was raised by my grandmother. I was actually in foster care as well. So my foundations in my childhood were actually quite shaky because I moved around quite a lot as a child. But in terms of your life and the foundations that you have planted in your family life, is there anything that's standing out for you? So I feel that when you've been brought up in care, you do learn to become independent quite quickly. So that's one of the things that's impacted me in a positive way, I would say. So the A is for aspiration. So I'm going to keep going talking about my grandmother, Susan. As this conversation develops, you'll find out more about my grandmother, Susan, because I feel she was a very aspirational woman in my life and in our family in general. So in terms of family heritage, my grandmother, Susan, is still having an influence on her nieces, her nephews, and their generations, even though she passed away some time ago now. So because she was so aspirational, I really do feel that her drive and the way how she really wanted the best for me, she knew that I didn't come from the perfect background. I'm her daughter's daughter and she had to step in, but she still had high aspirations for my life. So please share about the aspirations that you've grown up with or who inspired you to be aspirational. Let us know who you are and what you do. Mentorship, very interesting. So today I have posted an article which is about consistency. I've posted that on LinkedIn and I'll share it in the comments here. And I mentioned Jim Rohn. I absolutely love Jim Rohn. He is an American philosopher. He has definitely influenced my life as a mentor. Unfortunately, I never met him. Okay, I actually do know people who did meet him, who had dinner with him, who knew that they were mentored by him directly. So let me know who is one of your mentors. This might be somebody in your family. This might be, for me, Jim Rohn. He is what I would say is an online mentor because I never met him. So who is your mentor? And then we are going to talk about I for investment. Now, I deliberately chose the I to be investment because it doesn't necessarily mean the financial investment. I'm looking at this from a different perspective. Who are we investing in and who is investing in us? So we can go anywhere with this. And remember, this is just episode 1 where I'm introducing the concept of family heritage, but I'm letting you know that every week we will be looking at the family principle. And then the L is for legacy. And in that regard, I'm talking about you. So let's have a deeper conversation about the legacy you are leaving. Okay, so we all know that our time on earth, even though, to be fair, I did read something the other day that was talking about eternal life, but that's a different conversation. But our time on earth, we don't know when it is going to be our time, basically. This is where I love doing content like this, writing, I'm not going to talk about the book that I haven't yet written. But I am surrounded by a lot of authors. So if you have written a book, please tell us about that in the comments, because that is part of your legacy. You have left your mark in the world and you are showing the world that you were here. So this is the principle. So I won't go as deep as that. Every week we'll probably take one or two letters from the principle and I'll go deeper on that conversation. So basically, it's not supposed to be like a really long drawn out conversation here. I just wanted to show up weekly. So we're only on episode 1. Every family has a story. I'm not going to tell you my whole life story today. I've given you little snippets. But essentially, if you don't know who I am, I was born in Nottingham. I'm recording this episode from Nottingham. I have lived in other places, well, one other city. So essentially, I consider myself a Nottingham born and bred woman. But yeah, tell me about yourself, where you're tuning in from, and maybe what's caught your attention with this conversation. And I'll be back next week. So the idea is I'll come back every week around 1:30 on a Sunday for the live. If it's not exactly 1:30, it's because something's happening in my family life. So we'll try to show up around that time. But yeah, essentially, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you were watching it and you want to give me the answers to the questions that I've asked along the way, please do. And if not, if you're just happy to listen in, but you were here, give me a thumbs up, please. Let me know that you were here. And I look forward to recording episode 2 next week. So thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate your interest. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.